Suicide sucks. And it's really hard to talk about. Extremely hard. I think the reason that it's so hard for me specifically to talk about is because it's always going to be really real for me. On October 1st of 2015, I tried to kill myself. Since then, I still think about it every day, whether that be in the context of being ashamed of it, or maybe walking myself through it again to see how I could help someone who's walking through it right now, or maybe even just wishing I would have died that night. It's always going to be a part of my story. While I was writing this talk, I actually almost lost a good friend to suicide. So yeah, suicide is really real for me in a lot of aspects. And it's so hard to stand up here and to talk about it, because talking about it makes it even more real. And I wish with my whole heart that it didn't have to be so real. I wish that if I just didn't talk about it, it would go away. But as they say, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So I have to stop thinking it will go away. I have to stop begging for lives to be saved only within the four walls of my mind. I have to stop believing that silence is the answer when 44,000 people are still dying by suicide each year. I have to talk about it. We have to talk about it. So I'll start. I remember watching my anxiety turn into hating myself, into thinking that I didn't deserve to live anymore. I remember what made me want to die. But the boldest memory I have from that night was the thought I had just before I tried to overdose. Why can't I just ask for help? I could hear my parents downstairs and my sister in the room next door. Part of me just kept begging myself to go tell one of them what I was feeling. But that part was too small. The bigger part kept saying, Sadie, this has to be a secret. It kept telling me that I was alone and that no one would understand. It kept saying that I couldn't ask for help because asking for help would make me a burden. And God forbid I'd be a burden. Looking back, I really do wish I would have chosen to ask for help, because I know now without a shadow of a doubt that my friends and family would have been there for me. But how was I supposed to know that those dark thoughts that I was having were thoughts I could have spoken out loud? If I had never heard anyone else say, hey, sometimes things get really dark and I want to end my life, how was I supposed to know that if I reached out for help and I said those things, no one would have called me crazy? Now, it's a scary thing to walk up to even your closest friend and say, these thoughts in my head, they won't slow down, and I can't eat, I can't sleep, I can't focus, and I want to die. How can you be sure that they won't freak out and make it worse? Or even more so, how can you be sure that they wouldn't feel so burdened by your hurt that they would turn around and walk away? We don't know because nobody talks about it. In my experience with the multitude of kids I've encountered in not only a psychiatric facility, but also just within my school, suicidal people are terrified to ask for help because the whole idea of suicide has been stigmatized to the point where even those of us who struggle with it seem to believe we are, in fact, crazy. I truly believe that if suicidal people knew it was safe to ask for help, they would. So let's show them that it's safe. The first step is to get educated. These things, they matter. According to the CDC, suicide is the second leading cause of death among young people. I believe that it needs to be common knowledge that suicide is not an issue of race, of gender, of class, of age, of sexual orientation. Suicide is a human issue. And once we grasp that idea, we are far more likely to take steps towards education because we then realize that no one is immune, not us or our families. The next step under the umbrella of education is to use the resources we have available to not only learn the signs of suicide, which is extremely important, but also to understand that we have the power to halt suicide in its tracks. The following statistic breaks my heart, and I hope that it breaks yours too. 81% of people who attempt suicide tell someone what they are going to do and when they are going to do it before they do it. 81% of the time, they tell someone what they're going to do and when they're going to do it. You understand what that means? That means that 81% of the time, we as loved ones, we know what they're feeling. We know what they're thinking. We even know what they're planning. Yet we stay silent. Why? I understand that some of us may fear that the troubled person might feel betrayed if we tell someone, or maybe we fear that getting involved means it wasn't just a joke and it wasn't just a threat. Getting involved means it's real. We don't want it to be real. But I hate to break it to you, but getting involved doesn't make it any more real than it already is. Our fears do not excuse our silence. They don't. So what can we do to make sure that when we're made aware of someone's suicidal ideation, we choose to get them help instead of walking away? Well, I think the next step to do that is to get honest. The scariest thing I ever did was own up to my past and tell my story. In our society, we are so obsessed with image, giving this false idea that we have it all together. But where has that gotten us? The walls that we've built around our hurt have fostered more than 44,000 suicides a year. Not to mention 25 suicide attempts for every death by suicide. Raw vulnerability is terrifying, but not as terrifying as the thought of losing our loved ones to suicide. When I say get honest, I'm not asking that you talk about suicide if you've never experienced it. I'm not asking that you walk up to every stranger and tell them the darkest parts of your life. I'm just saying, stop wearing a mask. Stop pretending that you're having a good day when you're not. Stop lying. Stop acting like you have it all together when you don't. Show people who are battling suicide that it's okay if they don't have it all together. Show them that, yeah, everybody has their crap they have to deal with. Be transparent in the way that you choose to live your life. I understand if you feel like that honesty is scary, because it is. I've been there, still there. But getting real about the tough stuff is the only way that we're going to be able to help people who feel like they're alone in this. I know it's tough, but step 3, get brave. I went to school with this girl for about 4 years, but up until our senior year, we had never spoken, different social circles. But for Suicide Prevention Week of 2016, I wrote an article about my suicide attempt, and I published it, and she read it online. A few days later, she walked up to me and told me that she read my article, and followed that up with, "I want to die." That was the first of many people who have chosen to confide in me about their struggles since I started talking about mine. It's a ripple effect. When someone feels safe and secure because of your honesty, they'll choose to be honest too. It's so hard every time someone tells me something like that. I question, what if I say the wrong thing and they end their life? Or what do I even say in this situation? More often than not, I question, why can't I make it better? I understand that fear. I get it. One time I was talking to this really awesome teacher that I had about what I was struggling with, and I randomly felt this overwhelming wave of shame, and I began apologizing to her for telling her these things, for burdening her. Her response was pretty awesome. People say you won't remember what people said, but you'll remember how they made you feel. So I'm pretty sure the following quote isn't exactly verbatim, but she meant something along the lines of, I'd rather face these thoughts with you than lose you any day. And I think that that's pretty powerful. I think we all need to be like her. We all need to choose to tell that fear that it has no place here. We need to be brave and talk about something that is so very scary. So let's be like my teacher. Let's choose to save lives. Let's talk about it. When I say let's talk, I'm not asking you to walk up to the person sitting next to you and be like, hey, 44,000 people die by suicide each year. Or, hey, one time I tried to kill myself. That's not what I'm asking of you. I'm just asking that you don't run from it. Don't avoid it. When you see someone who is hurting, walk up to them, please. Just walk up to them and talk about it. It is not that hard to be there for people. You walk up to them and you tell them that whatever they're feeling, they can share with you. Tell them that they can tell you those dark thoughts that they're having. Just face it. Be there for people. I know that sometimes helping others requires us to be honest and vulnerable about our own struggles, and that means we have to overcome a lot of shame sometimes. But like I've said, we cannot let shame and we cannot let fear stop us. So from this day forward, I ask that you would join me and no longer sit in silence while suicide takes our friends and our family. Let's get educated. Let's get honest. Let's get brave. But most of all, let's talk. Thank you.